All right, so we have another episode of the KEW Exchange, and where knowledge through experience transforms to wisdom. My good friend Amanda Banks is joining me today to discuss homeschooling and entrepreneurship. And Kelly's here, thank God. Okay, I didn't screw it up. So here it goes. Kelly made it. All right, so Amanda, why don't you tell a little bit about what you're going through, since my story has been plastered all over.
Yeah. So I'll just start with the homeschooling part. So about 2.5 weeks into the school system, our school year, we decided to pull our daughter out and just homeschool her. Like my husband nor I had any experience in homeschooling at all. And we just made the decision that as a family, it was going to be what's best, just due to all the craziness with COVID and all the other things going on. So we pulled her out and we started homeschooling her. Meanwhile, my husband and I both work full-time jobs. Like we were both full-time employees. And so throughout that process of, homeschooling the kiddo and then being a full-time employee, now transitioning into a business owner, it's just been crazy. But that's a little bit kind of about our journey just with the whole homeschooling start.
So give a little bit about how your transition from W to, having a job to starting a business.
Yeah. So, being a full-time employee, I've been in the workforce for about 15 years, and I've always known that being an entrepreneur business owner was kind of the end goal. COVID forced us to reevaluate how we look at, just employment and conducting work as a whole, which I'm sure that we'll get into a little bit later. But we made the decision that, with all of the schedules and me committing as an employee, like it just wasn't working. I was a full-time employee. I dropped down to part-time, and we just couldn't get a rhythm from the homeschooling perspective to, working. So we decided that not only was it a good opportunity for me to go ahead and launch a company, but that it was a good educational opportunity for our daughter to experience that as well while she is homeschooling. So we made that difficult decision as a family, but it's been exciting.
Yeah, it's funny because, my situation was a little bit more extreme and, kind of forced into this. And COVID kind of just kicked me in the teeth on top of it. But like when I was homeschooling the kids, right, because I've put them back to school now because they just weren't performing right. No matter what I did, I was spending 2 hours a day with each of them, trying to work at the same time and juggling a 3-year-old who just didn't want to do anything without her. So it was, I want your Chromebook. This is my Chromebook. This is my Chromebook. And it was like this whole big mess. Almost to the point that I wanted to flip my 3-year-old schedule so that she slept all day so I could get the work done. But I figured after a while that no sleep wasn't going to be productive for me either. And I've tried that out and it didn't work. It's this whole paradigm shift. And I have an issue with the education system. I just have a grudge against it. So that's a whole nother story. But the work that they were doing, it's here. The way that they did it here was all self-taught.
Yeah.
It was at your own pace and self-taught. So I was literally teaching them, and it was hell. It was literally hell because I had to try and teach myself Common Core math, which I don't understand to me. And it was a lot. It just was a lot. I didn't get it. And then it was trying to get them to do, they had these crazy science experiments, but they weren't telling me what I needed to buy for them. There was nowhere to find out what I needed to purchase. Like, I'm sitting here trying to do these things and I'm spending hours a day running my head into the wall because it made no sense. My poor son, the 8-year-old, he thinks the same way I think. So when he looks at Common Core math, he looks at it and walks away.
Yeah.
He just won't even try. It came down to the point that I just literally had to ask him the questions and he would give me the answers off the top of his head.
Yeah.
And with him, he could do multiplication in his head. He can do everything in his head. He's like me. So it's like trying to slow him down to show work in a Common Core fashion was not entertaining or fun or productive for.
And there's a lot of pressures, right? Like when we did this evaluation, we really sat down and we thought, okay, she's going to this incredible school that she's gone to for many, many years. And, a year ago, almost today, it got demolished by the tornado that came through Nashville. And so, they were at a church, which was a little bit of a different environment with all of the craziness going on with COVID. It was just different. And so we thought, well, maybe we could put her in public school and we'll try that. But we had heard from a lot of other parents that it's just a chaotic mess. And so we really made the tough decision with really a little bit of information, like to pull her out and to truly homeschool her so that we would have a little bit more stability with her environment, a little bit more stability with, just the content and the way that we presented the information. And I recognize that we're super fortunate to have had that opportunity to do so. But it really gave me a very unique perspective on what the educational system offers the market to date. And then also, like, for us as a family, how does our family dynamic have to shift? How do I have to shift as a mom, as an employee, or as a business owner to be able to support my daughter's needs? And how do I present information that's going to keep her engaged? Because like you said, like, you can't give them just some kind of a device and say, here, learn this stuff, because that's not what they're accustomed to. And so we really had to evaluate, like, how are we going to teach her this information? Is it going to be self-taught? Is mom going to have to teach it? Is dad going to have to teach it? Like, I'll just be honest, like Common Core math is not something that I've been exposed to, nor do I understand how to make it happen. And so how do we actually teach her what she needs to learn? And who in the household is going to do that? Is dad going to teach it? Is mom going to teach it? Is she going to teach it? So there's been a lot of evolution, just how we're presenting material or how we're engaging with our daughter.
See, and I have a little bit of easier solution because it's always me. So there wasn't a dynamic shift. It was just right. So when I had it was so awkward because when I first got them, it was like, beginning of March of last year. So that whole third quarter basically got wiped out of the school year. The work that they were sending home, literally the teachers would look at me and say, they don't have to do it because we're just giving them the grades from the quarter before. And I'm like, how does that work? So the kids missed a quarter of last year's school year because of COVID. And then when they started doing the work from this year, since it was all this work at your own pace and do it with, it read to them, but that's all it did. There was no interaction. There was no, this is how it needs to get done. There was no explanation. Like, the platforms were horrible. They switched platforms 3 times in the first 3 weeks of school here. Like, literally switched platforms 3 times. So, like, I would sit down with them, they would get work done, and then it would be like, oh, well, we're switching platform. And I'm like, I could have just worked that week, made money instead of, ramming my head against the wall trying to juggle a 3-year-old while teaching these 2.
Yeah.
And it's this torturous process that teachers were not equipped. The schools were not equipped. The system was broken beyond belief. And they were trying to put Band-Aids everywhere to make this work. And they're not looking for real solutions.
Yeah.
The solutions that they're providing for themselves, for the students, for everyone involved is making it so much worse on every single level for everyone.
I have a lot of heart towards people that have kiddos at home right now. It is not easy. We're all trying to do our best. We're all trying to figure out what works. Just us personally, we originally, I had a very structured routine for my daughter. I thought, okay, well, we're going to push content. We're going to push material. We're going to push math. We're going to do all these things. And it ended up causing more chaos in our house. Then now the approach that we're taking is we're introducing her to everything that she needs to be introduced to. But I'm actually teaching her concepts of, hey, mom's starting a business. Why don't you help me with website design? Or let's talk a little bit about, economic literacy and what does money mean? And, these are all things that it became very clear to me pretty early on that the school systems just are not teaching, or, at least some of the things that we've been exposed to, they're not teaching these concepts. And so rather than us trying to individually do all of our stuff and mom takes breaks to go teach this or dad takes breaks to go teach this, like incorporating her into the things that we're doing has been incredibly helpful. So that's one big piece of advice I would give to anybody. Like, incorporate them into what you're doing. Like Aaliyah sat in demos, like software demos when we're evaluating vendors. Like she's evaluated, pricing and scope of work and quote documents. And, we've really started taking this approach of like, look, these are real life skills that you're going to eventually have to learn. So why not just, when we have the opportunity to do so, just include you in on some of this stuff. And so it's actually been a lot of fun because kids have a different viewpoint on everything. And she's 10, so she's able to, offer some really incredible advice herself. And so, even through demos, she's like, hey mom, why don't we think of it this way? Or why don't we do this? And I'm just like, man, this is like, I would have never even thought of this. And so, rather than us trying to do things individually, like we do try to include her in business tasks when we need to get them done.
Well, and I've been working from home, I mean, since pretty much 2007, right? Like I've had random jobs here and there when I needed W-2 or insurance, whatever it was. But mostly, I mean, almost all of that time was working from home and being an entrepreneur and creating business and creating consulting and stuff like that. My kids have been around those calls since they were kids, right? Since they were really tiny. I mean, I guess they're still kids, but my 8-year-old really takes an interest in everything I do.
Yep.
Like once a week, he'll come to me and be like, well, what's going on with this business? What's going on with this one? What's going on with this one? And he's like, I'm going to run them all one day. So I just need to understand what you're doing with them. And I looked at him and I'm like, you won't do your schoolwork, but you want to learn about about the businesses. And I'm like, that's great, but can you at least just do some of your schoolwork? I mean, I know you can sleep in class and ace it, right? Like my son's gifted that way. And I'm pretty much guaranteeing that that's probably what he does is sleep in class and just, and because of the circumstance, the teachers probably give him a little extra slack. I didn't have that circumstance, so I got in a lot of trouble for sleeping in class and still acing every test. He's a little bit more lucky when it comes to that, but I get it, right? Like they don't know, financial literacy. They don't get taught practical life skills. Like there's no interpersonal skills. There's no emotional intelligence taught. There's no mental or overall wellness.
Yep.
Right. Like, I mean, I got my 8-year-old meditating and his anger has dropped through the floor.
Yep.
Like there's none of this in school. And these are things that can give them well-rounded lives that they need. And it helps me with my sanity by getting them engaged in things that make them, a little more sane. Now
there's also not a lot of resources for parents. Like, let's just be real here. Like we're trying to make all of these things work. I was looking at and I pulled it up. I was looking at I think it was CNBC had posted sometime in September of last year, like coronavirus crisis caused 40% of parents to change their job situation. And I mean, that's a staggering amount. There's not a lot of resources that I have found that really support the parent through this journey as well. Like I said, I went from being a full-time employee to being part-time, now to launching my company, and that has forced that transition a little bit. But like the reality is there are so many of us that could really use some expert guidance here that it's just not available. And so, we've had to learn just by trial and error. And, the one thing that I had a couple of people that just had told me some amazing tidbits of information. And one said, Amanda, there's no homeschool emergencies. And that has really, really stuck around with me because even my daughter, she will hold me accountable and say, Mom, we need to recognize there are no homeschool emergencies. And so sometimes when things just get tough, like you can't make things work without things just becoming an elevated issue. And so we've really had to like learn how to work with each other, take a step back, and realize there's no homeschool emergencies. Like that is one of the biggest pieces of just gold that I learned throughout this journey because it's so powerful yet so simple, right? And so I tell myself, Amanda, there's no homeschool emergencies. And sometimes we just have to take a step back.
So I wonder, right? Like right now here in Arkansas, schools are open, kids are going to school. If there's an outbreak, then they close it for a week or two or whatever they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's it working in Tennessee? Because every state is different. Like I know that Pennsylvania they're doing half days virtual and half days in school, which sounds torturous.
Yeah.
And then Florida was doing full-time school, but teachers didn't want to go because they didn't feel safe because nobody wears masks. It reminds me of here, actually. And like, how exactly is it working there? Like in
Yeah,
the
so we don't really know. Like we do know that like some of the schools, like Aaliyah's school has maintained in service the whole time. It's all in-person learning. Obviously, if there's something that comes up, they withdraw the kids from the school and do remote learning. I know some of the public schools are doing a couple days a week here, a couple days a week there at home. And that was one of the reasons why we made that tough decision, because we knew that there was going to be a lot of instability. And that is something that my daughter does not do super well with, is kind of just this like instability. Like she likes to have a little bit of routine. And so that was, a big driving force for us, is like, we just didn't know what we didn't know at the time. We're glad that we made the decision. But like you said, like it's kind of all over the place. There's not a lot of structure. Things change quickly. And so we don't really know exactly what's going on because we're in the homeschool bubble.
I see, and when I had them home and I was working, doing that with them, I felt like there was more instability then. Like it was kind of like, I'm going to let them sleep to a certain time so that I can get work done. I'd wake them up. I'd spend 2 hours here, 2 hours there with them. Hopefully Sid would sleep long enough that I could get half of this child so that she could eat the rest of it, right? And then be done with them for the day, back to the kids, spend time with it, and then go back to home. And then mixing in Zoom things that weren't even scheduled. They'd let you know the day up. And it was more just giving them personal skills and interact, which my son and my daughter interest. Like it was, I don't care. I don't want to be in there. Like it was very strange how they're doing it. And then when I look at like the last 3 weeks, like we were iced in and snowed in for 12 straight days.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah, I mean, they missed, almost 2 full weeks of school. Well, I think one of those days, would have been a holiday. I'm trying to remember what the dates were, but like, I think one of the days would have been a holiday and one was a virtual day anyway. So it was really like, whatever, 6 days in class. But like, they're never making this up. This is never getting made up. I don't care what it says. They're losing this school year. I mean, this school year is gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like that's the approach that we initially took, was like a super structured, like you do math at this time, you do English at this time, you do social studies. And like we stuck with that routine for, I think, the first semester, and all of us were miserable. Like, I'm not going to lie. It was a challenge between her. It was a challenge between me. Like I was trying to work full time. My husband works full time. He has his own office upstairs. It just didn't work. And so, I kept coming back to there's no homeschool emergencies. So we really tried to come up with like a unique way of us all working together, and for her to actually learn some of the things that she's really interested in. And so one of the biggest challenges that we had to face was like, okay, I know that there's like certain things that you have to learn, and we're going to make sure that those things are learned, but we also have to incorporate things that she's passionate about or things that she's interested in. So there's like some really incredible resources that I've stumbled up across along the way. Outschool.com is amazing. If you have kids at home, it is an incredible platform that allows them to really focus on the things that they're passionate about. My daughter wants to be a marine biologist. Like in Tennessee, we're in Tennessee, like there's no ocean close by. And so, this gives her an opportunity to do marine biology or to focus on things that she's super passionate about. And, the thing that I found that was super interesting is I took her to a teaching school or to a teaching, is like a store. And I was like, you need to pick out like 4 things that you're interested in that you're going to actually apply time and resource to. Like, mom's got this stuff I got to do. Yes, I'll incorporate you into the things from a business perspective that makes sense. But like sometimes mom has to get work done. And so she picked out 4 things and I was like, I would have never picked that out for you.
Right.
Like one was polar regions. The other one was the Renaissance. One was geometry. So she's in 5th grade learning 8th grade geometry. And then another one was economic literacy. And so I'm like, well, I mean, so that's been really helpful on this journey, is like asking her, like, what are you interested in learning? And then having her actually pick out some of the things that she's focusing on. Because you can't force, like I couldn't force her to do all of these things with a super rigid schedule the same every single day. It just didn't work. And I was getting frustrated.
Well, it wasn't working for them or you, right? But you
No.
have to juggle your schedule around it. Your husband have to juggle his schedule. And at the end of the day, it just doesn't work.
Mm-mm.
Like for me, no matter how hard I tried, it would go great for 3 days. And then Sid would get up at 6 one morning just because. And then the whole day was gone. Because the minute Sid's up, there's no, you have this Chromebook, you have this Chromebook, you go sit in this room and do this class, you go sit. Sid wants to know what's going on. She's 3. Like 3 want to be in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
And it was, I can't leave them home and take Sid somewhere. I can't, there's nothing really to do here. I'm right on a road. Not that it's a main road, but you would think it is. Like it's a one-way road that goes nowhere, but there's lots of trucks. Yeah.
Like, and I can't imagine having multiple kiddos at home doing this. Like,
it doesn't work.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine it. It's tough enough doing what we're doing right now. Like, I can't imagine having multiple kids, at different grade levels, trying to figure out ways to just keep everybody interested and entertained. And then you still having the opportunity to do the things that you need to do from a business perspective. Because the reality is, like, I have to work. Like, I have to earn money. I have to be in the labor force. Like, I have to do these things. And so we just have to figure out a way to make all this stuff work. And I'd be lying if I said we have it all figured out. We don't. Some days are better than others, Mike. Like, some days are just terrible where we're all almost in tears just trying to figure out, like, how are we going to get through this? Like, we have to figure out a way. And then some days are just like magic where everybody's happy and we're learning things and mom gets work done, dad gets work done. It's a magical thing when all that happens.
Well, what I ended up doing is to simplify it for myself, and it was backfiring a little bit, but I was doing the best I could with it. I was letting them play Roblox, and I was letting them play Minecraft. Yeah, I can't remember that name. I always call it Minesweeper. I'm just a moron like that. And then I was letting Thomas play Farmville. Now, as much as none of these things sound like they make sense, there's a creative side to all of them. There's a commerce side to all of them. He started understanding what it was costing him versus what he was selling it for, the time that was involved. He has set timers to make sure that he was watching eggs when they hatch and like all these crazy things. But he was learning and absorbing that. And those are important skills that don't get taught in school. Now, I'm not saying that, letting them play on these games all day is a great idea, because it's not. But what I was doing was I was allowing him, as long as he was taking his tests, then I was allowing him time to do that. Because I couldn't sit there and do all the work with him.
Yeah.
They would inundate with him with these projects that made no sense to me. Like, I'm not standing there and doing 15 minutes of PE, watching and counting how many jumping jacks the kid does.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't allowing that. Are you kidding me? Like, she's like looking at me like, yeah, no, this ain't happening. Let's go. And that's really how my days were going. Like, there's not enough structure when I have zero support here, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I had anyone that like could even come sit here for an hour and entertain Sid, or she was entertained by a TV show or entertained by anything, it would have been okay.
Yeah.
Tried everything. I tried ABC Mouse. I tried, what's the other one? Something. I don't know. I tried like 7 different apps.
I mean, this has given me a lot of, like, not that I already didn't have it, right? But like, this gives me a whole lot of love and respect towards our educators. Like, it's amazing to me how they can keep people engaged and keep kids engaged, and like, really, like, it's given me a whole new love and respect for our educators. Yeah, I think that there's other things that we could be teaching our kids, but like, just the way that they do it, the way that they keep kids engaged, and just even the love that they have for them. Like, I've got so much respect for that industry as a whole, because of this experience. And, we talked a little bit about, the kids' schedules, but the adult schedules, like, I had to really take a lot of pressure off myself with that. Is having like this very rigid schedule, or I get up at this certain time and I do this and I do this and I send out my emails and I follow up with people and I make my phone calls, and like, I'm sorry, it just didn't happen. like I couldn't make it happen. So I've had to really take a lot of pressure off of myself and my flexibility with my schedule as well.
What I did was basically schedule suicide, and I was getting up at 4, waking up the older 2 at 8, so that they'd be ready for 9 for me to sit down with them to do whatever. I would do calls from 5:30 to 8:30, and then as soon as Sid went in the bedroom, because she doesn't always get right to sleep, she would fall asleep to a movie, maybe a second movie, whatever it is. And as soon as she went in the room, I would start my calls again, and I would stay up to almost midnight. Now, that's not a very sustaining schedule, especially juggling 3 kids. And keep in mind, during COVID, really nowhere to go, always in the house, 24/7. I mean, it was torture. So there was no out for any of us.
Yep.
And then what I would find myself doing was on Friday, pretty much going to sleep when Sid went to sleep and waking up whenever whoever got up first. I mean, I would literally like cram through the week to try and survive it. And then when the weekend came, I was a zombie. Like, I was dead.
Yeah.
It was torture. And it just, I messed up more than I succeeded at anything I did, because it wasn't a sustaining schedule for me to be able to function right. I don't need a lot of sleep. I can function off less sleep than most, but 4 hours juggling 3 kids in the middle of nowhere, no, that's not enough.
So how did you, like, I'm just curious, like, how you adjusted your schedule to accommodate it? Like, once again, like, there is no, like, we're still trying to figure this out. Like, we're almost a year into it. We're still trying to figure it out. Right. And so I'm just curious, like, what have you done that has really helped make an impact on your schedule specifically?
Put them back in school. But it leads to me being in the car 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I don't have the best cell service out here. So, well, nobody has good cell service out here. Let me restate that. No one does. It's the part of the country the world forgot with cell towers or something. But it's like, I mean, my schedule still sucks. I'm still not happy. Most nights I pass out on the couch at 9:30, like, and that's it. Like, I'm done. You know, juggling them and driving around and working and doing calls and doing a live almost every day, and sometimes doing 2, sometimes doing 3. Like, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, and I'm just trying to do the best I can with everything.
Yeah.
You know, Saturday I shut down completely. Yesterday I did a couple calls, not much. Like, I mean, I need to give myself, you know, breaks and self-compassion, because this is torture. People complain partial custody. People complain that they have, you know, nothing against you. One kid, it's fine. I get it. It's difficult for all of us, right? It really, my situation is so extremely different than everyone's, where I'm juggling a 3-year-old mixed in with it. You know, it's so tough because she came from a very neglected situation, which means she's very attention hungry. And for me to keep her calm, she needs my attention. So what ended up happening was, after a while, I would sit on the couch. She would sit next to me on the couch. She would be doing something on the tablet at the time, and I'd be sitting there going over with it. Hey, Kevin. Hey, Marianne. She would be doing something with it, and I was also helping Michelle and Thomas with their work. Like, I mean, that was literally my position for the day. I would sit in the corner of the couch. Sid would lay on top of me. Yeah. The attention and the love. And then Michelle and Thomas would literally carry their Chromebooks over when they needed help with something. And it wasn't effective for any of them.
I mean, this takes multitasking to a whole nother level. Like, if there's a silver lining here, like, multitasking, patience, you know, understanding, compassion, and, you know, it takes these things to an extreme level, because you're right. Like, you're trying to juggle all of these things. And, you know, the reality is I'm not offered focus, like complete focus for something. And so I'm having to juggle all these different parts and pieces. And I really had to do some inner work with myself of being like, it's okay. Like, if my dogs show up on this interview, it is what it is. Like, if my kid shows up, like, I can't control that. And at first, when all of this stuff was happening, I put a lot of pressure on perfection and like making sure that the environment is perfect, not just for her, but also for me and the people that I'm working with and my clients and the company I was working for. And I've really had to reevaluate perfection. Is like we can't live in a perfect world. Everything is just different, and it is what it is, and that's okay. And so, quite frankly, like I enjoy seeing other people's kids on video, or when we're doing whatever we're doing business wise. Like it's okay. Like I enjoy seeing people's kids, or because it's real. It's the reality of what did it say, 40% of parents finding a job. So like that's the reality. And there was another article I pulled up. It said this was in February, nearly 3 million US women have dropped out of the labor force in the past year. I mean, that is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. So
Marianne, I see you there. I love dogs and kids on Zooms too. Like it is what it is. Like we can't, instead of trying to control it, just accept it.
see, and that's the part I'm okay with, right? Because like I've been working from home for so long, I mean, before my kids. So when I had my kids, my oldest, she's 11. So let's go back to 2010. I remember doing conference calls and Skype video calls with her as a toddler in the middle of the night talking to UN in Africa and in China, because I was part of a UNDP organization, and they used to do, their time zone. So it'd be middle of the night. And my daughter would get up every night to spend time with me. So I used to do them with her on me. And they used to look at me like, just a little unprofessional when you come to our meetings. And I said, yeah, I don't really have a choice.
Yeah, it's reality.
Middle of the night, you got to get used to it. Like, you want me to start turning on video? I can turn on video. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me, but this is how you got to deal. And I've been doing that so long that, yeah, I mean, I'm glad the rest of the world caught up. Because it's real, right? That's our real life.
Yeah, and by not allowing things like that to happen, like there are so many incredible people in this world that have so much to bring from a product, services, like what they have so much to bring to this world, right? And by having that stigma of like, oh, well, this, bringing kids, like that does nothing for the workforce. Like it is what it is, right? Like let's just, I've just accepted it. Knowing it's a challenge, like it's a super challenge, right? Like there are a lot of things that you have to learn how to figure out how to juggle and multitask and like, but there's also so much opportunity to this. There's so much opportunity to, teach, to coach, to help other people. And, just having that ability to work with her has opened my eyes in so many different ways. It is going to make me a better business owner, a better leader, more patient, more patient, loving, kind, like all these things. But it is an incredible skill set that I'm looking at it from a learning moment. Like it is what it is. Let's learn from it. And let's find ways that we can look at this from an opportunity standpoint.
Well, I think COVID taught everybody quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. It continues to do so.
If we chose, right? Because like it gave us opportunity for many things. It gave us opportunity to realize how real virtual is, right? Because virtual things are just as real as in person to me. I've always felt that way, just because, me being who I am, I can feel energy, whether it's somebody in front of me or whether it's around the world. So like for me, virtual is identical to real. Like, yeah, it's a little different. I don't get the physical embrace or any of those things, but I can tell exactly who somebody is, whether they're in front of me or whether they're around the world. Right. So like for me, what it's really shown me is I don't appreciate myself enough.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. I mean, that's true.
I mean, I'm not very good on showing myself appreciation. And in this case, I will, because I don't know how I've done this for a year. I really don't. I have no clue. Because if a year ago you would have said that I'd still be here, I probably would have said I'd be dead. I don't know how I would have made it through, right? This far away from everything that I know, this far away from anybody, juggling 3 kids, taking them to school. They're all getting A's. They're both getting A's and B's. My youngest is in preschool and she loves it. I mean, they're thriving right now. And consider the condition that I got them in a year ago. Like, I never would have expected any of this. Like, it never even would have shown up in my, like, I would have never believed it. it's been such a process and an evolution personally, an evolution business wise,
Yeah.
an evolution watching my relationship with my children and how that's changed.
Yep. Oh, I mean, my relationship with my daughter is so different, and I'm so blessed to have had that opportunity, right? Like, because I didn't know, I always thought things were like amazing and like,
Right.
I'm doing the best that I can. She's doing the best that she can. But like, this has really given me an opportunity to get to know her as her own being and to really help guide her. I'm not perfect. Like, I make mistakes almost every day in some of these things, but it does give me the opportunity to help her in ways that I never would have had the opportunity to do so in the past.
But you're also showing by example, right? Because
Yeah.
mistake, you're owning it. You make a mistake, you're owning that. So you're teaching her not to hide if she does. There's a level of transparency that you're teaching. There's a level of honesty that you're teaching,
Yeah.
and by doing so, right? And these are skills that they don't learn because everybody's taught to live in fear. I don't want to fail. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to do this. I'm pretty sure it's out the window, right? Like that's just out the window for the most part.
Yeah.
Because
And I feel for kids, like, from a mom perspective, like, having, just my daughter home. I have two step boys as well. But my daughter is the one that we've got at home. And she, like, just watching her having to like find ways to entertain herself. Like, this is terrible, right? It's just her. Like, my heart goes to her because it's only her at the house. And the lack of socialization and opportunity of socialization right now, as it stands today, due to COVID and homeschooling, is such a challenge. And so her having to learn how to entertain herself or to find things that she's interested in, how to be bored. Like, I don't think kids really know how to be bored anymore. And so that's, to me, that's a valuable skill that, if you're bored, pick up a book and learn, or, make something, go craft, or, find something to do. But like, that's one of the challenges, one of the biggest challenges with having kids at home right now is, like, just the socialization aspect. They need friends, they need kids in their life.
I mean, they're lucky because they have each other in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The impact that it makes on the 3-year-old, because Sid is 3.5 and Thomas is 8.5 and Michelle is now 11. The 11 and the 8.5-year-old really don't want to deal with Sid. So I see how Sid really shuts down because of that, right? But I also see how she lights up when she gets to preschool in the morning, and how she runs into the classroom to play and runs into the classroom to do the arts and crafts, the ABC, all that fun stuff, right? And she's so excited about it. Like, don't get me wrong, she's excited to leave, to make her work, but and she also cleans there. So let's make a keep a note here. She doesn't clean at home, but she cleans there. Like, if she's playing with a toy, I'll sit there at the door waiting for her, and she'll just put it all away. And I'm like looking at the teacher. I'm like, can you come teach her that at the house, please? Because she doesn't do that at all, ever. And partially my fault, partially not, but it's probably mostly my fault. But it's okay. Like, there's so many things that are different. There's no curricular activities, not really. It's taken away a lot of them, COVID. Everything's more distance, everything's more separate. My oldest is this human bubble of love.
Yep.
Used to walk around giving every living human being hugs. So that was how she spread love, is by hugging people. And I used to call her the town mayor, because you can drop her in the middle of nowhere. Within a week, everyone in that area would love her, because
that's Aaliyah.
Right. Like, that does is spread love. And it's like, it's amazing, but I feel bad for her right now because she has no outlet for that. Right. Yeah. And that's her best form of communication.
Yep.
She's not great at communicating her feelings, communicating how she feels and what she feels. And even on a learning level, she learns differently than the system teaches her.
Yep.
Hard for her because the system's set up for one type of learner. And that's obviously something else that needs to change over time. Oh, that shoulder's tight. It popped it.
Well, I mean, I think that there's so much opportunity for that, right? Like, there's so much opportunity to find ways to, like, make adjustments or changes. Like, this is so new to everybody, right? But like, we've explored the good, the bad, the ugly with it. We'll continue to explore the good, bad, and ugly with it. But I do think that there's a lot of room and a lot of opportunity for involving our kids in things that, 10 years ago wouldn't have made sense, right? I mean, there's so much technology. Business is just changing. The way that we conduct business, the way that we engage with people. My background is very heavy on the sales side and relationship management side and strategic partnership side. And so like, just the way that business is transitioning is dramatic. And so the way that kids need to be educated and the things that they need to be educated on need to change, because it's different. It's just significantly different.
Yeah, I mean, we're using an education system that was created for the Industrial Revolution, so we're a little behind, just a tad. And not everybody's meant to clock in and just go home anymore. So, the skill sets that need to be taught, and they've, because of budgetary needs, science and not science, but arts and creativity and music and all those things get cut and go by the wayside. I mean, it's a really sad state of affairs that the book companies, right, and I'm going to call it like it is, really scalp the system. And they make a new edition every year or two, so that you have to buy the new edition, which changed probably 3 words. And it's really scary, right? The way that the system's functioning right now. And the truth is, kids get more experience, like what your daughter is doing, by working with you. And what my son asks me about my company, or even playing these games, he's learning more applicable skills to the world than Common Core math.
Yep. Well, the interesting thing is, the thing that I really appreciate is curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kids are so naturally curious and they're just so interested in learning. And so, I'll pat myself on the back here, because we've done a pretty good job of like trying to find ways to make things interesting or learning about stuff. And, even if it's individualized, like where she's focused on doing it herself, like, I spend a lot of time, effort, and energy in trying to find things that like will help drive that curiosity, because I think that's something that just kind of gets dumbed down a little bit, is like the ability to be curious and to explore. And I think kids are just naturally explorers, so let them explore, right? Like, if Aaliyah wants to pick up economic literacy, I'm no economist, nor am I a formalized educator, but we can talk about it. Mom can explore, mom can figure out ways to present this content. It might not be like the best, but we're all doing our best. And so, I think it's really interesting from a kid's perspective. Like, curiosity is just huge, and allow them to be curious.
I think the system has, in lots of ways, removed that from them. And it's put them into this mentality of memorize, take test, right? And when you're taking away the excitement to learning, I hated learning up until I left school. And then I love learning on my own.
Yeah.
Or 7 to 10 audiobooks a week.
Yeah.
When I'm in that mode, like, I love learning my way. I love curious about topics I want to be curious about.
Yeah.
The problem is we don't give them that opportunity enough.
Agreed. And I think that people that have entrepreneurial mindsets, like, I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. I always love creating. I always love, solving big problems and putting a bunch of parts and pieces together to solve those problems. And, for me, like, formalized education was so difficult for me. Like, I went to college, I wasn't prepared for it. I did terrible. Went back to college, did terrible, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. In all reality, I went into sales, and I figured how to sell everything from tacos and attic insulation to gymnastics apparel to high level technology. And, it reminded me, because I had incredible coaches and mentors, that like, what I'm passionate about is being an entrepreneur and creating things and solving big problems, but I thought that I needed to go and follow this strict path, when in all reality, like, anybody can create something. And so I want to instill that in my daughter of like, look, you can be whatever you want to be. If you want to make slime and sell slime online, by all means, let's create a slime shop.
Right.
If you want to be a marine biologist, go do that. You're going to have to go to the, and get a doctorate. Perfect. Do that, but it's just, to me, I never knew it was an option until I had incredible coaches and mentors that said, look, this is a great option for you.
Well, luckily, I did follow the pattern. I'm very good at following. I'm not very good at listening or authority figures or any of those types of things. So I would say to do, I would say, no, that's not what I do, and do it. And after dropping out of school and getting all this fun stuff, working at the stock market while there, everything, investing in businesses while there, then losing everything again, creating stuff from nowhere, doing I did all these things on, and it was my natural driven self that pushed me, because I remember far back. I mean, even in early elementary school, it was selling slap race school or selling candy or lollipops.
Yep.
Teachers didn't like it because the gum went on the bottom of the desk, school bus seats, everywhere else. But it was always something. It was always being productive and creating something, which then turned into selling illicit things as I got older. But that's
gosh.
I mean, there was also times I borrowed stuff as a young person from hotels and would sell that back.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was creative, right? I mean, my cost for something was zero, anything was profit. So, I did all sorts of stuff, but it was always this motivation to drive something, to learn something, to do something different. And that was not taught. They tried to take it away from me. Now, the teachers, I don't blame teachers, because they work their off and broken system.
Yep.
Do the best they can. And it's really sad that they get the blame and the criticism from me specifically. I blamed everyone for not being able to work with me or other students that learn differently. When reality, they have standards they have to uphold, or they're out of a job, and they're just doing the best they can. System in front of them, and to me, the whole system complete overhaul.
I think things are dramatically gonna have to change. I mean, that statistic, 3 million US women have dropped out of the labor force. For me, I was blessed to have the opportunity to focus my energy and efforts on starting our company. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. And so, things are gonna dramatically have to change from a foundational level, because this is gonna, we don't know how long this is going to continue to happen, but it has shifted everything from family dynamics and having kiddos at home to how you conduct business, and how do you engage with your clients and your prospects, and how do you sell, how do you drive revenue. It's all dramatically changing. And so I would like to think that education is going to get a little bit easier at some point on our end, but the reality is it's got to change a little bit.
Well, and I think with the technology that exists today, it's really doesn't make sense to put them to our. When I look at my son at playing these games again, right? Let's just go back to the games, for example. These games were created to distract them, spend money, do all this crazy stuff. Trust me, I had the Robux receipts to prove it.
We do too.
Comes out and he's like, "Can I please?" And I'm like, "No." Okay, fine. Just buy it. I do it, and it's probably not, but I do it anyway. But it's the stuff that they're learning there, the creativity, the stuff they build from scratch, and then he can tell you what everything is being built of, what every crossbreeded pet, which I still don't understand. I'm very confused about that. Every crossbreeded pet is made of, how long it takes them to make it.
Yeah.
There's such.
And the coding behind it. They understand how to code.
Well, I haven't gotten him there yet, but I'm definitely going to push him towards it.
Yeah.
Until I get him a little bit more through therapy, I'm scared what he'll create with it.
Oh my God.
But when he heals a little bit more from the trauma, I want to push him into that direction, right? And I think every kid needs to know how to code. I think that's the future. And if you're not coding, then you're going to be like me trying to figure out code, because and when it comes to me having to code, if I can't hire someone, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to hire someone.
Well, I mean, it's really interesting. We're, in the process of building our website right now. And like, she knows a lot more about some of this technology than I do straight out of the gate. And so I'm like, well, I mean, we could work on this together, even from colors and like understanding color palettes and like marketing. Like, she's just got such a brilliant mind in regards to that. And, having her like look at things and be like, hey, can you understand what I'm trying to say here? Like, if you can market things and sell to a sixth grader, fifth grader, then you can really provide a clear and concise message for what you're doing to the market as a whole. And so, once again, we're trying our best, right? Like, we're not perfect. We don't have answers to, quite frankly, anything, but we have learned, rather than us trying to do things as individuals with this crazy rigid schedule, incorporating each other into the things that we're working on with a learning lens in place has helped us dramatically, and taken a lot of the pressure off of it.
Yeah, and I think that over time it's gonna become more of a norm for us.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we really have learned through this process is self-compassion.
Yep.
Something I never believed in. But it kind of was forced on me, and like I always was the harshest critic on myself. And now, when I first got my son, he was the same way. And now I see him looking at himself and being like, I screwed up. It's okay. And
Yep.
we get better. Right. And that's a huge, drastic improvement for an 8-year-old out of what he came out of. So as I look at this, it's like there's so much going on and there's so much negative that we can focus on. But all these positives are coming from this.
Yep.
There is enormous growth across the board.
Agreed.
Individual, child, adult, senior, no matter who it is. Like, there is so much growth and knowledge being shared and wisdom being created through this, that it would really be a shame if we did go back to the old norm and just let it all fall by the wayside.
Well, another thing is like boundaries. Like, we understand what our boundaries are. And when my bucket's getting ready to get full, there's no productivity that's going to happen on anybody's. Like, everybody kind of learns, even my daughters learn kind of the boundaries and like, okay, like, I'm really productive here. I'm not so productive here. Like, let's really look at this. And like, all of us kind of have a better line of communication in regards to that. Like, sometimes, guys, the buckets just get full. Like, you can only do what you can only do. And frustration happens to everybody. Yeah. So being able to communicate that in a very compassionate, loving manner, rather than just blowing up, like, it helps diffuse all situations, but it also allows for open lines of communication and being like, look, like, we just got to take a step back and knowing when to do that.
Well, the knowing when is the difficult part, right? Because we're such overachievers and we want to exceed and we want to overachieve and we want to get stuff done. And that's a big transition for me also, is to like just be okay not getting everything done.
Yeah.
That's huge for me because I want it all done. I want it all done now. I want it done my way. And it's going to be perfect, so leave it be.
Well, and my daughter is the same. Like, we are very similar just by nature. Like, I try to get as much done as I possibly can. She does as well. And when we're like working together, sometimes that just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But we have learned, like, okay, and she doesn't take advantage of it. Neither do I. Like, she's learned when things really, like, when she really needs to take a step back, like, communicate that. And I think that's a valuable skill for everybody. And all of us are having to explore what our boundaries are with it. Like, what?
That's an enormous skill for anyone.
It is.
I'm still struggling with that one. I'm getting better with it, but I'm still struggling with it. I'll push myself over the limit sometimes. But I'm really working on it, and I'm really trying to get a better grasp of what's leading up to the breaking point, right? Mm-hmm. Because I've never been good at putting those brakes on before hitting the wall.
Yep.
So I'm trying to figure out how to skid next to it rather than slam through it. and it's kind of just where I'm at right now, and I'm getting close. But it's so much. Like this is a topic that can go on for hours because this is really affecting everyone in
It is.
everyone's lives. And I almost feel like we could do a round table with like 10 parents and just sit here and talk for days.
Oh,
So,
we could. And like a lot of the challenges, like a lot of people are facing similar challenges. We don't have the appropriate resources to thrive and be successful in this. We're trying to juggle a million different things. And so it's just, like you said, like, let's round table it. Let's talk through some of the similarities and some of the things that are just, is what it is. Like, how do we get through them?
again, I think it comes down to just doing the best we can and knowing that we did the best we can and having that self-compassion. It goes back to self-compassion, I think, and just letting go sometimes because we can't do it. We just can't.
Self-awareness. Like, this is pushing all of us in like a very, like, we have got, it's almost like finding your identity through all of this. Like, I had, especially from the switch of being full-time employee, part-time, going to entrepreneurship, you kind of have a little bit of a shift in trying to figure out what your core identity is on top of all of the other things with having the kiddo at home. And like, it's just, you really, I had to do personally a ton of like soul searching of like, what am I wanting to accomplish? What impact am I wanting to make as an individual in this world? How do I incorporate my family into that? Like, how do we make do with what we've got right now and we're as productive as we possibly can so that we can make the impact that we're looking to make? It's a challenge.
It is. It's definitely an adventure. So we hit the hour mark, just about. Do you have any closing remarks before we go? And anything?
There are no homeschool emergencies. that has really helped me. My heart goes out to everybody. Like, I understand the challenges. This is hard. This is hard for everybody. It's hard for parents. It's hard for kids. It's hard for family members. It's tough.
Be
patient and kind and loving towards yourself.
And each other.
And each other, and lean on other resources. If you're stuck with something or you're struggling, just reach out to people that are going through something similar that can help guide you through this process. Because as I said, tons of us are going through it right now.
Yeah, it's, I can only imagine what the Reddit rooms are like right now for people that are talking about topics that I ever looked, but I could only imagine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that would be insane. I mean, if you could take a stock like that and do what they did there, then I can only imagine what it does to help.
It's true. There's not a whole lot of resources available for this, and we're all just trying to do our best, and lean on each other and, help other people, help other friends, do the best that we can.
It really is. It's almost like we should do community schooling to where you're in a neighborhood and you have like 5 or 6 parents and everybody does a subject that they're good at. That would even work at this point.
Well, I've learned what I am not good at, and I've also learned what my husband is good and not good at from a formalized education perspective. And I'm like, okay, Dad's going to teach you this, Mom will teach you this. Mom's got you on language, Dad's got you on Common Core math.
I still can't figure it out either, so.
I can't either, but I'm lucky to have that resource. A lot of people don't. And so, we do the best that we can and take a lot of the pressure off of ourselves with the things that we can't do.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thanks for setting up this chat. I think it's a really important topic that, there needs to be a lot of awareness brought to it.
100%. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.